I loved Zane before I even knew what love was. We were kids chasing lightning bugs under Georgia skies, cousins by name but strangers to the bloodlines that others guarded like secrets. He was 2 years older, with amber eyes that always looked like they knew something the world hadn't told me yet. Our love didn't grow loud. It crept in like breath on a window, quiet, delicate, inevitable. We were raised on parallel tracks, me in church pews, wrapped in sermons about purity and shame. Zane in a house where his mother's skin was too light and his father's too dark for either side to fully claim him. He learned early to exist between lines. I learned to color inside them, but neither of us believed in lines anymore. The day I told him I loved him, we were 23. We sat by the lake that used to be a plantations field, and I said it like a dare. His silence scared me more than a no ever could. Then he whispered, "Maya, I've loved you since before I had the words," and that was it. No thunder, no violins, just the sun setting over old water and two hands finding each other like they always belonged. If the world burns, he said that night, at least we burned for the right reason. We got married in a rented room on a Tuesday, with chipped paint on the walls and a radio playing someone else's love song. No family, no rings. Just us and a tired justice of the peace who didn't ask too many questions. Kay wore white anyway. He looked at me like I was holy, like I was salvation. They found our bodies 2 days later, inside his old sedan, parked off Highway 9. What was left of us was fused together bone and ash. The fire report called it an accident. The sheriff called it tragic. I call it what it was, murder, but no one else will. They say we were reckless, that we pushed too far, that love like ours had consequences in a town like this. But I know better. We didn't die because we loved wrong. We died because they hated right. And maybe I'm still here to tell it, even if my voice no longer has breath, because stories like ours never really end. They're buried beneath burned tires and scorched leather and silence that screams. We'll leave together, Zane had promised, and they won't be able to stop us. They didn't stop us, but they made sure no one else would dare follow. She stood trembling at the lake's edge. The next morning, my mother, her hands shaking, a photograph of me and Zane falling from her grip into the muddy grass. The sun rose like it always did, as if it hadn't watched us die. A wind stirred the cypress trees behind her, and in that wind was the first whisper of what came next. By sunrise, yellow tape fluttered in the breeze like warning flags. Nobody wanted to acknowledge. The scent of burnt rubber and gasoline still clung to the roadside air, sickly, sweet, and bitter. Cars slowed, but no one stopped. Not openly. Detective Grant Holloway squatted beside the charred skeleton of the sedan. He scribbled in his pad with the same bored detachment he wore when sighting broken taillights. The tow truck driver wouldn't look inside the car. It was fast, Holloway said to no one in particular. Gas line must have ruptured. No foul play here. By 10 a.m., it was ruled an accident. By noon, the whispers had begun. Maya's mother, Deja, had collapsed by the lake when the deputy gave her the news. Now she stood at the edge of the wreckage site in yesterday's slippers, arms folded across her chest as if holding herself together. They were being watched, she said, her voice low but clear. You think I don't know how this town works? Somebody followed them. The officer beside her offered a glance, brief and uncomfortable. Ma'am, the report. I don't care about your damn report, she snapped. Don't you dare stand here and tell me this was just a fire. She stared into the blackened frame of the car. Pieces of Maya's purse still clung to the melted seatbelt. Her daughter had loved that purse. It was a birthday gift, bought in Atlanta. Deja's breathing grew ragged. She turned slowly, scanning the small crowd that had gathered just far enough to feel innocent. She saw them, the neighbors, the church ladies, the hardware store owner, all of them pretending to be shocked, pretending not to know. She had lived here all her life. She knew what silence meant in this town. It didn't mean peace, it meant complicity. Across the street, a little girl asked her mother what had happened. The woman pulled her child away without answering. Deja dropped her eyes to the gravel. "They got married," she whispered, "and y'all burned them for it." The wind shifted. Ash scattered across the roadside like black snow. Inside the sheriff's office, the incident log was already sealed. A copy was sent to the coroner. Cause of death, vehicular fire. Undetermined ignition. No one spoke the words hate crime, and in the church that Sunday, no names were mentioned from the pulpit, but behind closed doors, the conversations were different. They should have known better. They brought this on themselves. Not our fault things got ugly, and in every whispered exchange, Maya and Zane disappeared further until all that remained was the sound of crackling fire and the echo of their names behind. Closed mouths, Deja stood at her daughter's front porch that night, staring at the door that would never open again. The porch light flickered once, then went out. The porch light stayed out for 3 days. Deja didn't turn it back on. Maybe because she knew what the dark revealed. This town had always known better. Monroe, Georgia, wasn't the kind of place that burned crosses anymore. It had evolved, learned how to hide its hate behind politeness, prayer circles, and zoning laws. It smiled while it excluded. It offered hugs that stung like slaps. Maya had learned that young, so had Zane. He used to come home from school with questions about why some kids called him white boy and others N***ger. No one ever gave him a straight answer. Maya had seen it to tutors flinching when she raised her hand too confidently. Church ladies clutching pearls when Zane walked into the sanctuary in ripped jeans. They weren't hated. Not exactly. They were just ... endured. The first time Maya brought Zane to prom as her +1, the room went stiff. Her hair had been pressed to perfection. His tie matched her dress. They danced anyway. And when someone slashed her tires that night, the principal called it kids being kids. Years passed, but the message never changed. This town could tolerate them, just not together. Maya told me they were going to elope, Reverend Elijah said, sipping his tea with shaking hands. I asked her if she understood what that meant. She smiled and said, "Yes, it means we finally stop hiding." He looked across the worn kitchen table at Terence, Maya's father. "You remember what they did to my brother in '68? Elijah continued. "Married a white girl. Found hanging in his own barn 3 weeks later. Called it suicide. The rope said otherwise." Terence didn't answer. His eyes were swollen, glassy. He hadn't spoken since the night of the fire. "Don't let them bury this quiet, Terence," Elijah said, voice now firm. "They want silence. Don't give it." Outside, kids rode bikes past the church. Their laughter pierced the thick air. The pastor set down his cup and pulled out an old newspaper, clipping a yellowed photo of a younger him being dragged by police dogs. Maya had once asked about it when she was little. "I told her I survived so she could live," he said. "Now she's dead, and I need to ask why." The question hung heavy. Inside the town grocery store, a sign on the bulletin board read "Love wins" in careful script. Someone had drawn a red line through it. Behind the counter, the clerk turned over a jar, collecting money for Maya and Zane's memorial fund. Management thought it was making some customers uncomfortable. Reverend Elijah stepped outside that evening and watched the sun dip below the trees. He didn't believe in omens, but even he noticed how quiet the birds had become, and somewhere deep in him, something began to stir. The night before the wedding, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay on the thin motel mattress, staring at the ceiling, counting the soft buzzes of the neon light outside the window. The hum felt like a warning, or a heartbeat. Zane's breathing was steady beside her, but she knew he wasn't asleep either. "You still sure?" he asked quietly. "Terrified," she said, "but sure." The motel was called Lakeview Inn, though it hadn't seen the lake in years. The carpet smelled like mildew and the wallpaper peeled in the corners. But Maya had brought her mother's perfume. She spritzed it on her neck that morning like armor. Her dress wasn't white, it was borrowed. Light blue, from Talia's closet. It didn't quite fit at the waist. She cinched it with a scarf Zane had once given her during college finals week. They stood before the justice of the peace just after noon. He didn't ask too many questions. Just looked at their IDs, mumbled something about unconventional arrangements, and began the ceremony with a bored sigh. Zane held her hands so tightly she could feel her pulse in her fingertips. "Let's promise," Maya whispered. "No matter what happens, we won't regret this." "Never," he replied, voice steady but eyes glistening. Outside, the sky was overcast, clouds heavy and low, like they were holding something back. Inside, Maya said, "I do," as if the words were a shield. Zane kissed her like it was the last chance he'd get. There was no applause, no rice, no music, just the hum of the vending machine outside room 14, and the distant sound of a train cutting through Monroe. She looked at him as they walked back to the car, their hands still linked. "We're married," she said softly. "And we're still here," he answered, pressing his forehead to hers. She smiled, then blinked back tears. "You think they'll forgive us?" she asked. "They'll never understand us," Zane said. "But we didn't marry for them." Later that day, they drove past the church that had refused to host their ceremony. The parking lot was full. A wedding for someone else, someone easier to bless. Maya watched the white dress blur past her window. She didn't look away. That night, she left a voicemail on Talia's phone. "We did it, and I feel free. But I think someone followed us." The voicemail came in at 9:43 p.m. Talia didn't listen to it right away. She was in her room, headphones on, sketching something she'd never show anyone to faceless women holding hands beneath a willow tree. Her phone buzzed once and went silent. She saw the missed call from Maya around midnight, told herself she'd call back in the morning. By morning, Maya was gone. 2 days had passed, and now the message played on loop in Talia's ears like a warning she'd failed to heed. "Hey, ... it's me. We're okay, but I think someone's following us. Zane says I'm imagining it, but there was a truck behind us all the way from the gas station, just ... If anything happens, you'll know why." The line cut out. Talia sat alone in her car behind the old drive-in theater, gripping her phone like it was made of glass. Her stomach twisted with nausea. Her fingers hovered over the option to forward the voicemail to the sheriff's office. But she didn't. Not yet, Maya. was the only one in the family who knew about the girl in Savannah, knew about the lie Talia told every day about her dates, about her just friends, about the ache in her chest when someone said, "You'll make some boy very happy one day." Maya never judged her, never pushed. "You'll love out loud one day," she'd said. "Until then, I'll be loud enough for both of us." And now she was dead. Talia stared at the gas station on the edge of town, where Maya had last stopped. A flickering bulb buzzed above the pump. The cashier inside didn't look up as she passed. "They were followed," Talia whispered. She said it, and nobody's listening. In the rearview mirror, a pickup truck rolled slowly past, its engine low and steady. Talia stiffened. Her breath caught in her throat. The truck didn't stop, but it didn't speed up either. She drove off, heart pounding, pulling into her back road near the woods. She parked beneath the canopy of trees and turned the engine off. The silence pressed in. She listened to the voicemail again and again. Her thumb hovered over share. What if they come for me next? She whispered to no one. She could see Maya's face in her mind, bright, laughing, fearless. Talia had always envied that kind of bravery. Now it haunted her. The voicemail burned in her pocket like a secret too big to hold. That night, she made a copy, just in case. The original stayed on her phone, hidden under a folder labeled Sketches. She wouldn't tell anyone, not yet. But the silence was no longer still. It had begun to hum low, persistent and ready to shatter. The internal memo never made the front page. It was quietly leaked an anonymous email sent to Reverend Elijah in the early hours of Sunday morning. Subject line, "You need to see this." The file attached was short, cold, 4 lines. No evidence of foul play. Keep the ruling clean, accidental death, per protocol. Not worth triggering the community. DETG, Holloway vet, was it? No names, no remorse, just instruction. A directive to protect peace at the expense of truth. Reverend Elijah read the memo 3 times. Then he printed it, folded it carefully, and slipped it into his Bible between Psalms and Lamentation. At the morning service, sunlight filtered through stained glass windows. Maya's favorite, hymn played softly on the organ. The pews were filled with bowed heads and stiff shoulders. Elijah didn't preach the sermon he'd prepared. He stood at the pulpit, held up the folded paper, and let silence speak for him. "This," he said, voice low, "is what justice looks like in Monroe. A memo, a cover-up, a lie wrapped in silence." The congregation stirred. "We were told Maya and Zane died in an accident," Elijah continued. "But the truth is they were erased, and someone signed the order." Gasps. Few heads turned toward the back of the sanctuary, where Detective Grant Holloway sat with his arms folded, eyes unreadable. Detective Elijah said, "You sit in this church like your hands are clean, but your pen's dipped in ash and blood." Holloway stood up but said nothing, his jaw clenched. Then he walked out the side door. The room erupted by Monday. Flyers with bold letters, "Justice for Maya and Zane," covered shop windows and telephone poles. High school students shared the memo on social media. The story spread faster than Monroe could contain. Outside the courthouse, candles flickered in the wind. A crowd gathered, small but growing. Chants rose soft at first, then louder. "Say their names. Maya and Zane. Say their names." Inside the sheriff's office, the blinds stayed closed, and in the Holloway house, the detective stared at his reflection for a long time before he could face his own children. The threat started the day after the wedding. Zane had gone to pick up takeout from Rose's diner, still wearing the silver ring Maya had slipped onto his finger just 24 hours earlier. He was smiling when he walked in. He wasn't smiling when he walked out. "You really think you get to call that a marriage?" The voice came from across the parking lot. Mr. Caldwell, their neighbor for years, perched on the bed of his truck. Like a vulture. Zane didn't answer. He never liked feeding fire. "You're a damn taint," Caldwell growled. "Neither black nor white. And now you want to defile your own bloodline too. You're the kind this town used to know how to deal with." Zane told no one. Not at first, but later that night, Maya found him staring at the wall, untouched food cold on the table. "What happened?" she asked. "He called me a taint," Zane said. "Like I'm a stain, like I ruined something." Maya sat beside him, held his hand. "You didn't ruin anything. You are something. Something whole. Something they'll never understand." "I don't want to leave," he said. "They can't run us off our own roots." She didn't press him, but she had wanted to go. She had even started looking at rentals in Atlanta now, her search. History was part of the case file no one wanted to investigate. Zane had never told her everything. Not the broken taillight he'd found already cracked. Not the voicemail that came in from a blocked number just whispering, "You're dead." He had tried to be brave, but bravery doesn't stop gasoline from catching fire at the sight of the burned car. Reverend Elijah returned with Deja. This time, he brought flowers. She brought Zane's old jacket from high school, still faintly. Smelling of cologne and sun, they knelt. A scorched patch of earth still marked the spot. Deja laid the jacket down gently. "They burned him once when they watched him grow up in silence," Elijah murmured, "and again when they lit that fire." The pastor's voice cracked. "He wasn't a stain," Deja said. "He was the only clean thing in this filthy town." The wind didn't answer, but from the road more cars began to stop. Not just to look, to stand, to remember, to witness. The first mural appeared overnight, an old cinder block wall on Monroe's east side, long forgotten and half-cracked from years of disrepair. Now it held Maya's face size wide, mouth open mid-laugh, hair crowned with crimson wildflowers. Zane stood beside her, one hand tucked into hers, the other raised like a shield. No one claimed it until Talia did. She posted a picture online with one word, "Ours." The mural caught fire figuratively this time. Thousands of likes, shares, then articles, then cameras. By the end of the week, 4 more murals had bloomed across town, each painted by a group of teens led by Talia and Sarah Watkins. A white classmate who once sat beside Maya in a P-lit and now marched with her name on a hand-painted sign. Sarah spoke during a local news segment, voice shaking but eyes steady. "They were our friends, and if the adults won't say their names, we will." By Monday, a national reporter stood in front of the mural on Church Street, speaking into a microphone. "The FBI has confirmed it is reopening the investigation into the deaths of Maya Brooks and Zane Ollie, citing new information and public pressure." The mayor, red-faced and cornered by questions, released a statement, "We support transparency and are committed to cooperation with all federal inquiries." But Monroe's silence was already broken. At dusk, the murals glowed in the amber streetlights. Some had candles at their base, others handwritten notes. "You were light, we see you, we remember." Outside Rose's diner, an elderly, Woman traced the painted outline of Maya's smile with her fingertip. I didn't understand them, she whispered. But they didn't deserve this. Talia watched from across the street, paint still beneath her nails. They tried to erase them, she said to Sarah. Now they're everywhere. Sarah nodded, eyes misting. Let them paint over us. We'll just do it again. The town hall filled fast. Folding chairs scraped against linoleum. People lined. The walls teachers, teenagers, factory workers, pastors. For once, Monroe wasn't divided by neighborhood or skin. Just grief and something burning beneath it. At the front sat Deja. She hadn't spoken publicly since the fire. Talia placed a hand on her shoulder as she stood. The microphone crackled. My daughter and her husband were murdered, Deja began, voice brittle. And you all know it. Murmurs stirred. No one interrupted. They were watched. They were followed. And when they dared to love in the open, someone lit a match. She paused, trembling, then steadied. You think this would silence us, but we're louder than flames. Her words hit like a match striking dry kindling. A man in the back stood. Then a woman near the front. Within seconds, the room rose to its feet. No cheers, no clapping, just the quiet thunder of unity. Outside, candles were passed hand to hand. A slow procession formed, winding through downtown. Children held signs. Elders carried photos. Teens lead chants, say their names. Justice now. They passed the police station. The blinds stayed shut. Still, they kept walking. Somewhere, someone started singing This Little Light of Mine. Others joined, their voices rising over sirens in the distance. Talia walked beside Sarah, both gripping candles, wax dripping onto their fingers. I never thought it would get this far, Sarah whispered. It was always this far, Talia said. We just stopped looking away. Deja reached the courthouse steps and turned to face the crowd. The flame of her candle wavered in the wind, but didn't. Go out. We don't just want answers, she said. We want truth. We want change. And we're not going home until we get both. Behind her, the mural of Maya and Zane glowed under spotlights defiant. Unburned. 1 year had passed since that night at the courthouse, but Monroe's streets still remembered Maya and Zane. The unsolved case file collected dust beneath flickering fluorescent lights. Yet their faces were everywhere, in murals, in hashtags, in speeches on cable news. A movement had sprouted from their ashes, growing beyond county lines. Talia stood before a crowd of middle school students in a sunlit auditorium. Beside her, a banner read Brooksale Educational Initiative. She adjusted the microphone, glanced at the poster of Maya and Zane smiling side by side, and drew a steady breath. We welcome you, she began. Our mission is to teach history they almost erased, to give every young person the tools to see injustice, then stand against it. The applause was warm, hopeful. A white boy at the front handed her a question. She recognized instantly. How do we keep their story alive? By speaking their names every day, by asking questions, by refusing to be silent. Behind her, volunteers handed out lesson plans that blended civil rights history with modern examples of bias. The room buzzed with energy. At dusk, Talia walked past the mural on Main Street, the largest of them all, painted beneath glass and steel beams installed to protect the art. Maya's laughter seemed to echo. Zane's gaze felt like encouragement. The air was warm, scented with magnolias. They tried to erase them, Talia whispered to herself. Instead, They became a fire no one could put out. She touched the wall gently, then turned away, carrying their legacy forward. The initiative expanded into workshops, scholarships, and annual commemorations. Each July, candles lit the courthouse steps. Every flicker reminded Monroe that justice might be delayed, but a voice once silenced could ignite change across generations. They live on, and always,